Righto, councillors, we'll get underway. It's just after 9 and we will undoubtedly fall behind in any case. We'll reconvene. There are apologies this morning for lateness from councillors Thompson, Hall and Benson Pope. And our first submitter is Mr. Collings from the Wakawaiti Coast Community. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and staff. Once again, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to our submission on the draft annual plan. Again, we reiterate, we understand the financial constraints that this council sits under at the moment, and hence our requests in relation to this year's submission what we think reasonable and will not provide a financial burden to council. I'll take it as the submission being read, and I understand the time pressures that the council is under in relation to the number of submitters. There are a couple of things that I would like, however, to highlight from the submission. We appreciate the support given by staff in relation to the closure or potential closure of Macrae's mine. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's a finite resource. And we do seek council's ongoing commitment to assisting us in identifying the impacts for our community with the likely closure in 2 to 3 years' time. I would, however, note that gold prices appear to have stabilised. They've even taken a little bit of an upward trend, but my understanding is they're still not at a level that would turn the decision around at this point. Waitati toilets. The board continue to be committed to providing public toilets within Waitati. We have been unable at this point in time to secure a site for those likely toilets. There is a lot of work happening on the ground to ensure that occurs. And what we would like council to do is allocate some resourcing for some design concepts early in next financial year that we may look at continuing the feasibility of a public funded toilet for council to pick up and maintain. Landfill charges. The board are not supportive of landfill charges being increased, and more importantly, we're not supportive of the landfill being operated as a profit that supports non-waste activities. If council is to operate the landfill at a profit, we ask that you clearly identify where the surplus is going and that surplus is targeted to waste minimisation. With the increase in landfills, if you take that to the full extreme, the last person to dump any waste at the landfill will need to be a multi-millionaire. Coastal management. Council must continue to keep coastal erosion and coastal management for areas owned and maintained by council at the forefront. It's a reality. It impacts infrastructure, and more importantly, it has significant impacts for our communities. Capital developments contributions. We acknowledge that the current proposal goes a long, long way to addressing a number of the concerns that the board had with the original proposal that was presented to the community. However, we do still believe that the capital developments contribution has the potential to be an inhibitor to positive investment for the city. In adopting any capital development contribution policy, council needs to be mindful that that does not occur. We don't want to push people away that are going to end up filling the city's coffers with an increased rate take. Furthermore, we don't agree with the inclusion of past capital upgrades that have been funded by this council on the basis of the intent to fund by rates being within the capital contributions calculations. Council, when making those decisions, made a speculative investment on behalf of the community based on a particular funding model, and we don't agree with that being included going forward. If a developer or potential developer is going to put particular pressure on council for contribution to facilities, then that developer should pay. If council has made a speculative investment in the past to promote development by allowing for the infrastructure, then they should be paid on the basis in which it was set. The board continue to support council's strive to reduce the debt level and are therefore supportive of surpluses being targeted at debt. And one last one, again we thank council for the discretionary fund they apply to community boards. It's not a lot, it is meaningful to our communities, and we ask that it be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Questions, councillors? Councillor Wilson.
Good morning, Jared. There's a submission, I think, from Andy Barrett, who's suggested that we consider how we're going to transition from the landfill at Wakaiti, and I'm intrigued that you're still doing the mega skips, which is almost counter to possibly some of the waste minimisation policies we've now adopted, although it's still budgeted for. And I'd just like to understand what your community board considers will be the transition period, and whether there's an opportunity to do, as your neighbours at Hampton have done, consider quite a different model.
If I can respond to that into two. The mega skips service the southern part of our community, being Blueskin Bay. They have no ready access to landfill. It's an option for that community to dispose of waste that they can't normally dispose of themselves. In relation to the proposal that Mr Barrett has put forward for the Wakaiti transfer station, the board would be supportive of an initiative such as that. We think anything that reduces the stream of waste to landfill in the long run is a good thing. Whether or not our community would adopt such an approach, I'm not sure, but I think it's very worthwhile in investigating it.
Right. Well, what are you doing to lead that as a community board, if I can ask that? Because I have been contacted by a judge in the balance awards that said farmers are finding it really hard to do waste recovery and recycling. I'm just wondering what your community board is doing to lead that.
If we refer to Mr Barrett's submission, he spoke at the public forum of our last meeting.
Okay.
It wasn't on the agenda, but the board hasn't had an opportunity to discuss it.
Okay.
So at this stage, the board hasn't formed a view of how it might be able to promote and lead that sort of initiative. And
last question, have you read the comments from staff on your submission noting that the Wakaiti landfill is subsidised 56% by, it doesn't run at profit, it's subsidised by general rate, just as long as we're there?
I am aware of that. My comment is in relation to the Green Island landfill, which is, my understanding, operating at a reasonably significant profit.
Councillor McTavish.
Thank you, and thank you, Jared, for once again a wide-ranging submission. The question that I have is also on the landfill issue. One of the difficulties for council is that the fees that we receive at the gate are fairly volatile. So we may 1 year end up $400,000 up from budget, and the next year down $400,000 from budget, just because of the nature of that activity. Would it be your preference that we under budget for the landfill, or that we budget to break even and potentially struggle to meet that, or would your preference be that we budget to run over, or to run at a profit, and some years run at more of a profit and some years run at less of a profit, but not be in a situation where we have to top that up?
Well, if we can bring it into the context of what I understand Council's facing this year, and I understand there's a projected significant drop in income, but I also stand to be corrected that significant drop in income is based on the fact that Council's no longer going to put its sludge to landfill. So to me that's an internal cost sharing that should be able to be accommodated without a significant shift in funding. In relation to income streams from the likes of the landfill, it's prudent to allow for a minor variance in income either way when operating a business. There are some years where you have a loss and some years you have a gain. Most businesses work on a long-term measure of trying to break even and make profit. How council distributes that risk is a matter for council. But I can use an analogy with the likes of parking revenue, for example, and more particularly parking fines. If council were looking at a target for parking fines, then surely the target would be that we would issue none, because everyone would be law-abiding citizens and there'd be no breaches of the law. But we don't. We actually factor in parking revenue, parking fines within our long-term budgets. That, in theory, that's expenditure we shouldn't be expecting.
A couple of further questions, Your Worship. I guess the other thing I'm struggling a little bit with is that there are a number of different council budgets which are not ring-fenced. So parking is another example of a budget which is certainly not ring-fenced for additional parking activities. It goes into the general fund and it is applied by council to whatever activity it considers most appropriate at the time. So is it your submission that we should be looking at all of those budget lines and trying to ring-fence everything for its activity, or is your concern specific to landfill?
My concern is specific to landfill because, as council will be aware, the target that we have as a council is virtually zero waste to landfill. If we continue to run on the operating model that we've got of surpluses, it's a business that can't survive. It simply is a business that can't survive because the people using it won't be able to afford to use it. Now, if that's the intention of council, then pump the charges right up so people can't. But the reality is that won't work in relation to waste management. All we're asking is, if we are to rate and fund for this particular activity to the extent where we're going to generate a profit from the overall group, then target it back into the council's target of waste minimisation. Don't spread it out city-wide.
Then my final question just pertains to development contributions. You understand that council has removed from the calculation that it is used to establish the average long-term average run of growth costs, anything in the past that was not well documented to be specifically for growth. That's why the quantum has shrunk so significantly.
Yeah, I understand that. However, when council invested in those assets at the time, council was quite clear with the community that they wanted to fund those assets from rates. It was a speculative investment that the council and the community made, knowing that they were going to pay for those to encourage, I assume, people to come, live, thrive and develop in this community. We're changing the rules halfway through.
But you understand...
Look, can I suggest that this is getting into discussion?
Sorry.
I think we'd have to accept that your board and the council has a different view of this. We don't agree. Any further questions? Councillor Hawkins.
Just one, thank you. If all of the profits from landfill were, as you suggest, ring-fenced for waste or waste minimisation strategies, what kinds of things do you think we should be spending that money on?
I think kinds of things that we've suggested in the past are getting alongside the younger members of our community who embrace that sort of initiative, education, looking at ways of utilising the waste in more efficient means. There are a whole myriad of options available to council, and that's where specialist staff come in to provide advice.
Thanks, Jared. Appreciate your submission.
Thank you. Good luck.
Mr. Williams, Strathtyre Community Board. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you. As per usual, we're not asking for the earth up there. One would look, well, we are a little bit on the request that the grants to our library, swimming pool and hall be increased with the inflation. They've been static for quite a few years, so we just want to keep that up to date. Our roading, we realise there's no money in there for future, in the meantime anyway, for seal extensions, but just as long as we can keep the quality that we've got, or slightly improved on the maintenance, up to date. We've get a bit disillusioned at times up there. We get a few things that happen, and the speed that it gets remedied leaves quite a bit to be desired. I was on the phone again this morning. There's a slip up the 4 mile road that has been just dug away at for quite a few times, and it just keeps slipping. But the long term repair would be nicer to have it done. The bridge, which we appreciate the council doing the Hyde Bridge when it's deemed to be unsafe, but I've been talking to Evan, but the bridge is very, very slippery now with frost coming up, so just the delay in getting something sealed on there before somebody flicks through and stuffs up the sides and perhaps gets drowned or something like that, because the river's been pretty good flow the last couple of months. So just some of those things that logically need done, but the delay is a little bit frustrating when I think and considering our climate conditions up there, if you get too late you can't seal or do anything. So I'm certainly not picking at Evan or the staff on that, but just some support from the rest of the council would be appreciated. Do you want me to go on to my own one now, or?
Oh, no, we'll tell you what, I'll ask for questions.
Yep.
on so that's your community board submission.
Yes.
So I'll invite questions from that perspective, and then you've got a personal submission to make as well.
I have, yeah.
So any questions, councillors? Councillor New.
Thank you, Worship. Barry, with regards to the sealing of the Hyde Bridge, have Transops actually made the commitment to it? It's just a timing matter for winter sets in. Is that essentially but it wasn't part of the original capital works?
I think it was overlooked, probably, the original capital works, but to be fair, Evan, I spoke to him again yesterday, and I understand there's a contract out that he was going to try and speed it up, but it has been a few months since the bridge is finished, and we are into that frosty season, I've had a good few phone calls regarding it, particularly early in the morning, late at night, and that's with locals. So if they're finding it difficult, strangers will be in the swim.
And just under rural roads, are you able to give us an update about the George King Memorial Drive widening proposal, just where that is at?
No, the only update I think I've got is it's been slips down there, and fortunately the contractor had not left and it kept slipping, so I think they've remedied some of that, but I'm not sure of the update on the widening that's been in the pipeline for far too long, really.
Thank you.
Councillor Lord.
Yeah, Barry, I was just going to ask a question about the rural roads too. The sealing, not sealing, sorry, the grading program that goes on in the Strathtorry, do you think that's something that's adequate, or does it need updated, or is it something that at certain times of the year we need to see the grader more often? Or?
Yeah, I think that, to be fair, I think we've got a pretty good grader driver at the moment with Filton Hogan, which I've passed the credits on to him. Some roads I don't think are maintained enough, that the contractor's got one grader, I think, to do too big an area. We've had a bit of flood damage the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's been a little bit sluggish to get some of those roads signs on them and then perhaps repaired. So yeah, I think some of it, overall I think most of us are reasonably happy, but never please everyone.
What I'm trying to ask is, do you think the problem's got worse, or do you think it's just that it's too big an area?
I think it's probably too big an area for one grader, one machine. And the conditions do change. They've improved it again now with a roller behind it. Seems to have pretty good comments, and some of the trials they're doing now, they've tried 20, 30 years ago with the teeth on the blade, but we can't knock them, I suppose, too much. I just think if they went around with truck and filled a few potholes in the early stages, it would eliminate a lot of those problems later on, because when they grade, they just put the loose stuff in the holes and it's virtually out a day or two later, and it just seems common sense. One or two of the issues we've got up there too, the roads have not been sprayed and they've got narrower and narrower. And then a poor old grader driver, he pulls that back and he gets the blame for putting all the rubbish in the road. So, but I think those things are being looked at and action has been done. Spraying's been done recently, so yeah, I think we're not too bad. Just some of those delays. There's a couple of dead trees that I've asked about a couple of 3 months ago. They're still not actioned and one to be pruned. I just think some of the response is ridiculously slow.
Councillor Vandals.
Briefly, Barry, can you tell us what you've managed to do with your community grant this year?
Yeah, we've, I think, distributed it to community groups. We've still got a little bit to be applied for. Most of the cases that I haven't got a full list, but are things that are going to benefit the community and the wider part of the community. We have used a bit of our money to go towards the hall, which they've upgraded, and the kitchen, and now they've got movies, and just which is benefiting the whole community, for whether it be a funeral, wedding, or social function.
And the groups that most of it's gone to, what sort of groups are they? Well,
I suppose you're looking at the museum normally, the swimming pool.
Okay,
Some that are struggling to be funded elsewhere, we try and distribute our money in those areas.
thank you.
Oh, you're the Leaning Rock Hut up for the fit ones that want to walk up the hill? Yeah, that's the only way to go.
Thank you. Now, would you care to go on to your personal submission, Barry?
Yeah, I'm probably like a lot of other people that very perturbed that the city is leaning so much towards cycles. You probably noticed I did get misquoted in a paper. I had the locals on the back. I was mainly meaning the cyclists that are utilising a lot of our highways and roads for races or training runs and being so inconsiderate. And I did mention that I would like to see cycles with an identification. They can pot you and I if we happen to, in their opinion, chop us off early. We can't do that if they're riding 4 or 5 abreast on a highway, being very, very inconsiderate. I strike it a hell of a lot on Highway 87 between Outram and Mosgiel, and we, the Community Board at Middlemarch, promoted that extra width there for safety side of it going back a few years. They still, a lot of them, or so I should say probably the minority, tend to ride in wider groups. We can't do anything. If we chop them off, they can report us. We have to register anything we put on the road, vehicles, trailers, motorbikes, and they are scot-free. In the city, Highway 1 or right through the city, I thought it was a main road to clear the town quickly. I've spoke to quite a few trucking companies, and your cycle lanes there just slow it all down. I think if you're going to have them, it's a minority again, they could be on some side roads.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. And I'm in no way defending bad driver behaviour regardless of their vehicle. But I wondered if you had any idea, or if you could tell us what kind of economic benefit cycling has brought to the Strathtyre region?
Oh, it certainly has, and that's why I was misquoted early on. I wasn't mentioning the mountain bikers or the rail trail. I was meaning the ones on the highway. And generally they're two different lots of people.
Okay. And perhaps Councillor Wilson is better. Tell us a bit about what percentage of the rail trail includes being on a public road?
Well, obviously they cross the road in a couple of 3 places. Yeah.
Tom, you went there, Aaron?
I suggest
He did like it.
Any further questions? That was better, Beatty. Thank you, Barry.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Barry. Where are we? Ms. Rosenberg. welcome.
Thank you.
Feel free to sit or stand or whatever.
I think I'll stand.
So the next 5 minutes are yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I want to, I know you want community feedback, and I hope that you'll see these key points as important. It's a shame that the submission almost encourages competing interests between communities, because we know that all the improvements need to be carried out as soon as possible. Vauxhall to Glenfalloch has the highest volume of traffic, consistently 70 km/h traffic, and the highest number of accidents. Referring to the district plan information, I divided the number of accidents over 5 years by the number of kilometres for each section. The results are reasonably surprising for each kilometre of road. Section A, Vauxhall, has 10.4 accidents per kilometre. Bad. Section C, Broadbay to Portobello, came next with 6.4 accidents per kilometre. Far too high. Section B, Company Bay to Broadbay, came third with 3.9 accidents per kilometre. Too high. Section D, Lower Portobello to Otakau Fisheries, had 1.5 accidents per kilometre. These are shocking statistics, and all are far too high, ridiculously high. The draft plan shows a total of 119 recorded accidents on the Portobello Harrington Point Road over the past 5 years. Now, I don't know how many of those 119 recorded accidents resulted in deaths or injuries, but there is always a cost to injury in treatment and rehabilitation. There is always a cost to society. I want to talk about the value of a life. The VOSL, or the value of a statistical life, could be around 3.5 to 5 million New Zealand dollars. When the DCC is making decisions about road widening and cycleway improvements to over 18 kilometres of road, we're talking about saving lives. The value of the improvements in terms of lives saved far outweighs the $27.7 million cost. But if you want to divide that $27.7 million figure by the lesser of the value of a statistical life, say the $3.5 million figure, then you'll come up with 7 lives. You could say 7 lives saved. It's possibly a funny way to describe it, but I think that you'll know what I'm getting at. Another aspect I'd like to mention is the relatively close proximity of the Vauxhall Glenfalloch section to the centre of the city. For example, from the Cove where we live to the Octagon is only 6.5 kilometres. This is roughly the same distance as the outskirts of St Clair, Ocean Grove and North East Valley to the Octagon. It takes 10 minutes by car, 5 minutes by ambulance, 21 minutes by bus, and only 27 minutes to cycle, and only 1 hour 20 to walk the 6.5 kilometres. So the time and the distance is very walkable or bikeable, like the other suburbs I mentioned, and it's flat. But for the walker, the terrain over uneven and the rocky grass verge, or for the cyclist, the narrow and dangerous carriageway are the obstacles. That's without referring to the 70 km/h traffic whizzing past your elbow. I haven't even touched on the dangerous or impatient drivers, an increase in the number of wide camper vans and drivers from other parts of the world on a famous tourist route who are naturally focusing on the view rather than on the road. We must separate the vehicles from the cyclists and pedestrians. A separate cycleway or walkway is a life preserver. I also haven't touched on the idea of a cantilevered cycleway, but I hope options like this have been considered by the council. Another thing I want to emphasise is that the 2024 completion date is too far away. Why not aim for 2019? 5 years, not 10. Those are my thoughts, which I'll leave with you as the decision makers, with the job of prioritising the spending. And I suppose the need is to decide which area to focus on that is likely to give the most desirable result in the saving of valuable human lives.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, just noting your where you're from, and I've asked this of everyone, so it's a tedious question for everyone else. But where are you? I appreciate that this is turning into a winners-losers debate rather than a win-win. And there are some submissions suggesting that we should be just prioritising this work and let's get on with it at a faster pace, which would be a better resolution. And the various ways of funding that, but one suggestion has been that we target rate for that, and the area that benefits ratest pays more for it. As a landowner or a ratepayer in that area, how do you feel about contributing more in order to progress this faster, so it's a win-win for everyone on the peninsula?
Possibly would, I'd consider it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess the whole city has to pay for this, so...
Well, that's, the
the whole city would benefit.
Would they?
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Okay, and the other question is, you gave an interesting figure for the value for the BSOL. Where do you get that figure from? Because it seems very high.
It's just a figure that's known about on the internet.
Okay, that's not a figure you plucked. It's,
no,
yeah.
no,
okay,
no,
thank you.
No, it's just a good figure.
Any further questions? Thank you for your submission.
Pleasure.
Ms van der Klunde. Dunedin Public Libraries Association.
Thank you. I do too.
Welcome.
I'm here with my committee member, Lindsay Garden, who is going to read the submission, and then I will add a few other bits.
Right.
Thank you.
The next 10 minutes are yours.
Absolutely.
As Merle said, I'm going to be reading our submission in view of the fact that I'm now at such an advanced age that I can't be confident of keeping the points in my mind for the duration of the period here. So I do apologise to those of you who have read the submission in great detail and therefore know exactly what I'm going to say. And it won't come as any surprise to those councillors who have been around for a while that our submission devolves around the same two projects, which they always have. First to do with the South Dunedin Library, and the second to do with the refurbishment of the City Library. Now, the reason that we're here yet again is because every time that some sort of progress seems within cooey, the councillors, in their wisdom, reprioritise and the projects are stalled, deferred, postponed, or sometimes changed in their focus, which is the case in a way with the South Dunedin Library, which we see now it's become the South Dunedin Community Complex. Now, we have absolutely no objection to community facilities being incorporated with the library in South Dunedin, and we've always promoted that, but we wouldn't like to think that the change in name indicates a change in focus, and that the library would therefore become a mere adjunct to a community centre, whereas we see it as being the principal need within South Dunedin. But we would have to say that we're enormously heartened by what is said in the documents that we've been handed out, that in May 2014, in other words, as we speak, work is being started on looking at the possibility of a shopfront library in South Dunedin. And we think that's an excellent move, but again, our concern is that things will change and this too will be postponed until some future date. Now, one of the less heartening things about the Public Libraries Association campaign for better library facilities in Dunedin is a perception that we are often provided with crumbs, whereas what we really require is the full loaf. And it's almost as if the council decides, right, we'll fix up one toilet in the library or give them a little bit of extra technology and that will shut them up for a while. But this has been going on for a very long time, and we would really want to see much further progress. And I would have to say that although we have given up hope currently of a new library building, the prospect of no significant work being done on that library until the budget 2019-2020 is far from satisfactory. And while doing a bit here and a bit there may stave off immediate problems, it will not halt the inevitable deterioration of what is an ageing and very heavily used building. And we do understand that the council is under great financial pressure and is seeking ways and means of putting off till tomorrow what it can avoid doing today. But we're also uncomfortably aware that this policy doesn't bode well for institutions like ours, which don't generate much in the way of income for the city. But we do find it ironic that a council which prides itself on our city's cultural life to the extent that it is party to an application for Dunedin to become a UNESCO City of Literature, with a very good expectation of success, should nevertheless appear to consider that that bastion of literature, the City Library, the creative and hard-working people that are housed there, and the thousands of Dunedin citizens who benefit from its existence are less worthy of ratepayer support than, say, some business or other, which may or may not come to Dunedin, bringing X number of jobs, which may or may not be taken up by the aforementioned Dunedin citizens, and which may or may not be the salvation of the city. And it is not the DPLA's intention to denigrate the council's focus on attracting new businesses, but to try to ensure that ratepayers' money is not wagered immoderately on rank outsiders, while the dead certs are left to trot along as best they can. And it is the proven contenders, like our art galleries, museums, and above all our libraries, which add value to the lives of those who choose to reside in Dunedin and add to the appeal of the city for the kinds of workers we say we want to attract here. Visitors to our city regularly end up at one or other of these institutions and pass on their impressions to other potential visitors. What kind of an impression do those who make their way to our city library take away with them? The management is excellent, the staff helpful and competent, the holdings extensive, the technology right up to the minute, and the environment shabby and getting shabbier. And it is our contention that plans for a complete refurbishment of the City Library building need to be put in train far sooner than the 2019-2020 date suggested in the draft plan. The Council has procrastinated too long already, and further delays will simply amount to false economy and poor property management of a building owned by the people of this region who expect the Council to maintain it efficiently on their behalf. So to summarise, the Dunedin Public Libraries Association congratulates the Council on the moves it has made so far towards the establishment of the South Dunedin Library and expresses the earnest wish that there be no loss of momentum. And secondly, the Association recommends that plans for refurbishing the City Library be brought forward.
Thank you.
The library needs better access from the car park. The lift is used by staff with book trolleys and other, and it's also inaccessible for disabled people and young parents with buggies and toddlers. Also, the only way to return to the car park is to wait until a member of the staff is available to key in the numbers to allow customers to get back down to the car park. We are fortunate to become a UNESCO City of Literature. The library will be a place for visitors to come. The Reed and McNabb collections are worldwide of importance. The library is drab, as Lindsay has said, and the carpet is patched and faded. It is not a good look. Also, has the council considered solar panels on the roof of the library? It would be a long-term saving of energy. The library is a great place. It is to the DPLA, who spends a lot of time thinking about ways to improve the library, and if we can with our funding, we do. But personally, it is a very important place to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Cowell.
If you've got any idea, could you tell us what proportion of our rates you think we should commit to the library? Bearing in mind that sort of half of them are paid by residents and half of them are paid sort of by commercial people. Whether that has any bearing on your answer to the question of what proportion of our rates should go to libraries?
I could not answer that straight away, but I would think a considerable amount should go to both the museums and the art galleries. I mean, Tutoy Settlers has had a lot of money spent on it lately, but the library unfortunately has not. But I can't give you, I would not have a clue how much rate money is to be spent. But I should hope it's more than it is now.
Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mel and Lindsay. You mentioned, I'm interested in the comments you made about the shabbiness and of the condition of the Central Library, and you mentioned the carpet. Have you got any other specific examples of what you refer to?
I think that our library carpet is, I think it was a bad choice to start with, but it is not, it is looking absolutely awful. I'm looking at the pristine carpet here, which has been down for quite a long time, I admit, but with the traffic in the library, I think that we do need an upgrade of the carpet.
So the carpet's the primary issue, or is the general refurbishment?
A general refurbishment would be great. Toilets, for instance, I'm always bringing up toilets. You all think I've got a lavatory mind. I haven't, but...
We don't think that.
Oh, okay.
You're okay.
But the toilets, apart from one, two, the others are awful. And sometimes even the doors don't lock properly. I'm referring only to the ladies' toilets. But I just feel that for our wonderful collections which we have got, Reed and McNabb, mostly material can't be displayed because there is no room for it. If we become UNESCO City of Literature, there will be loads of people coming to view it, and they have to go through the library to get there. And I think that this council should think very carefully about refurbishing the library, making it a pleasanter place for people to go. It isn't. I mean, people go and they borrow their books, and we have got technology coming, but it should be a warm and inviting place to be.
Thank you.
Councillor Whiteley.
Thank you, ladies, for a great submission. The question, I've got two questions really. The first one is, how many users to the library do you think just go there purely for the internet and technology?
I don't think that it is as many. There is always a lot of people using the internet and overseas visitors of course do. But I think our borrowing trends, while slightly down, still people come to borrow all the materials that the library holds, DVDs, CDs and books.
Okay. My second question is, I'm an advocate for seeing Toyota and the art gallery, etc., paying their way a little bit better and having outsiders or non-residents pay to enter. And I noticed the library has $110 for a non-resident library card.
Yeah.
And you collect fees from a lot of residents for the services you provide. How do you feel that the art gallery and these other facilities don't charge?
I don't think they should. I don't think they should charge. I think that it is something the city should offer. But also, I don't think that libraries should charge either.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your submission.
You're very welcome. See you next year.
Undoubtedly.
Thank you.
Tech Teach, Nia Straw. Welcome.
Hi. Was it better for me to stand or sit? Alright, thanks. So I'll get my technology in.
So the next 10 minutes are yours.
Great. So I'll do what the ladies did before me and stick to what's on my device, so I can keep within the time and keep within the content as well. So let me introduce myself. My name is Nia Strachan. I'm co-owner of a company called Tech Teach. We're a Dunedin-based company that specialises in smart device education. So you all have in front of you, or perhaps would have seen our written submission, opposing the proposed funding cut to the digital office. I wanted to take this opportunity to expand on our written submission and to help you better understand the positive difference the digital office makes for the city and its ratepayers. Technology is a key economic driver for any modern city. Yet we're discussing a decision to remove funding to an organisation that was established to deliver and drive progressive digital initiatives for Dunedin. The digital office's projects assist the city in adopting, fully utilising, embracing and benefiting from the digital world. We have to remember that just because technology is there doesn't mean everyone knows how to use it, or know how to use it well and use it safely. These points were raised by the city's business community and Dunedin residents through the development of the Dunedin Digital Strategy. The strategy survey identified a number of issues and challenges that the city faces and needs to address with digital communication and inclusion. So in our business, we see firsthand the city's gaps in capability, confidence and connection with digital devices like smartphones and tablets. It's like the roads are there so people go out and get a car for travel and then realise they actually don't know how to drive it. And just like driving, there's a learning journey with technology as well. It's about gaining the right skills, knowledge and confidence to be able to use technology effectively. And why is that so important? With the growing number of services being moved to the digital platform, many people could be missing out on the opportunity that they provide. They could be at a disadvantage, or it may even be costing them money by not making the move. As mentioned in the submission, Tech Teach has been involved in a number of projects with the digital office to help address the digital needs of the city's residents and organisations, something that the community identified as being of concern during the Dunedin Digital Strategy development. It's important that the digital office exists to initiate these projects, as it's best placed to see where the digital gaps and needs are and direct resources accordingly. With the digital office, we, the city, have an organisation that's addressing digital adoption issues and helping the Dunedin community not only access digital technology, but ensuring people have the skills needed to participate and benefit from digital services. Should funding be cut to the city's digital office, what message does this send to investors, businesses and the city's residents? If Dunedin is to become a knowledge city, if it's to become the technology city we hear about,
then shouldn't we be talking about increasing the digital office funding? Removing the funding to the very organisation tasked with ensuring the city is well equipped to take advantage of digital communication doesn't reflect a city committed or invested in making sure Dunedin isn't going to be on the wrong side of the digital divide, and that could so easily happen. People have a very powerful, portable, small computer in front of them, and they check email on it. There's people who we introduce to data for the first time, despite them paying lots of money for it. There's people who want to be safe, smart device users, but don't really know what that means. There's people who go through the motions of using their device, but don't have the confidence to do more. There's people who are wanting to access more content on their devices, but aren't sure where to start. This is just a small snapshot of what's happening out there. And it's the digital office identifying those needs and implementing measures to address them. In closing, it is Tech Teacher's submission that funding to the digital office should increase rather than being removed. Removing its funding would send all the wrong messages in an economy where technology is beginning to mean so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Naya. Questions, councillors? Councillor Carr.
Do you get paid to do work for the digital office?
Yes, there's a relationship there. It's monetary. What we do is they identify the needs, they work with the organisation, and then they subsidise the training for that organisation. Thank you.
Councillor Wiley.
How do you think Gigatown will affect the city if we won the Gigatown competition?
Oh, it'll be a huge benefit for the city. We have to make sure that the people are well equipped and know how to make the most of it. There's no point having this amazing fast internet connection and still everyone uses it to check their email. So it's really important that education component sits alongside with any initiative.
Any further questions? Thank you, Naya, for your submission. Much appreciated. Mr. Cohen. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much.
The next 5 minutes are yours to use as you will.
Thank you. My name is David Cohen. I'm here to undertake my obligations as a citizen of Dunedin. I wish to thank the Council for the time to speak at the hearing, and as you have a lot of people to listen to, I will do my very best to keep this short. First, I'd like to talk to you about development contributions. From what I understand, there is to be a flat rate system of contributions for new subdivisions. If the constantly escalating costs of providing infrastructure makes higher charges inescapable, I'm here to ask for some thought to go into the way that charging is structured, to give incentives to development that serves the city and its residents, as well as actually reflects the ongoing infrastructure costs. For example, a site in the city that is redeveloped to put 3 good quality residential dwellings on new titles, where there was formerly only 1, benefits Dunedin as a whole when compared to a new, low-density, extra-urban development. The city development makes Dunedin slightly more densely peopled, making infrastructure management simpler and more economical. It helps public transport's viability, and an increase in density helps underpin the development of Dunedin as an interesting, active and safe place to be. If development contributions are structured to encourage innovation, redevelopment rather than just expansion, good green design and high quality, then design can add interest to the cityscape and replace old, inefficient buildings with vastly more efficient houses, which upgrades our housing stock with much less impact on the city's infrastructure. This does require that the Council make some value judgments about what best serves the public good. This decision has already been made in the case of the support for heritage buildings, and I would argue strongly that similar support should be given to the development that allows Dunedin to prosper as a whole. Second, I'm also here to make a plea for clarity and better metrics for reporting on publicly underwritten large undertakings, such as the Early Settlers Museum or the stadium. At the moment, the only measures I can find are financial, and it would greatly facilitate public discourse if there were 2 sets of measures used. 1. Financial, where the activities are broken out individually in accordance with generally agreed accounting principles and expressed as, say, simple profit and loss before top-up and subsidies. And 2, social, by the collection and publication of clear and uniform measures of the public good provided by each site to the citizens of Dunedin. These measures would need to be quantitative, bums on seats, people through the door, as well as qualitative, the utility those venues provide to the people who use them. If we don't have comprehensible financial and social measures, we seem doomed to just keep expressing what are merely opinions, which is an unhelpful, polarising, ear-bashing process I'm sure you are all painfully familiar with. I thank the committee for their time and now will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Councillors? Councillor Wilson.
Well, thank you for your measures. Have you got some examples of other places that are doing that in that way that you suggest?
The tourism industry. The tourism industry make measures in terms of user experience and so on. It's the way they make their money. They're very focused on providing what people want. If they don't exist. Places to look for good examples of that will probably be through the business school, the university.
Thank you.
Councillor Peck.
Thanks, David. I'm just wondering, towards the end of your submission, you talk about understanding the public good, but maybe we don't. You kind of are you hinting here that we don't understand it properly yet? That we're in a time of wonder about how much public good we will get from the stadium.
Well, it's not only the stadium, it's all of the large public undertakings, and I think that there is a substantial shortage of good measures of utility out there in the public sphere that people can understand. We may understand it, but it's not visible. Shall we go?
Thank you very much for your submission.
Pleasure. Thank you for the time.
Now,